Hello, good afternoon. My name is Colleen Cascudo, and I am an advocate here at Pacer Center. You are here today to see the workshop about the change from your early intervention program to your individualized education program. So going from birth to 3 to that 3 on phase of education. It is very exciting, and I am glad I am able to be here with you today. A little bit about myself. I have been at Pacer for almost 3 years. I have 3 children, 2 of whom have been on IEPs, and one we did go through the IFSP to IEP process. I was an educator for 7 years. So on top of an advocate hat, I wear a mom hat as well as a former teacher hat. So I am excited for you to be here today. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat. Try not to keep them very specific. Please keep them very, very general. If it's, we don't want your child's name or anything like that. If I feel it is a question I can't answer here in the workshop, please contact Pacer and we'll have that information throughout the workshop for you. And you can ask to speak with an advocate. We have quite a few that work specifically with early childhood. So be specific when you call in about your child and their disability, and kind of how we can help support. And with that, we will get started. So just a little bit about Pacer Center. We have been Minnesota's Parent Training and Information Center since 1978. It's called Parents Training Parents, and the Simon Technology Center is also a part of us as well. We do the Count Me In puppet shows that go into the gen ed classrooms, well, any classroom really, and they do puppet shows all about inclusion. They're great to see. Simon Technology is wonderful. They provide resources with assistive technology. They do consults. I highly encourage you to reach out to them as well. Here is a Pacer Center information, pacer.org. We have a brand new website. This thing is 24 hours old and we're really, really excited about it. Very easy to navigate and to find resources. There's a phone number on here, and Judy Sweat's email is on here. She is the advocate who, she is unfortunately ill today, but she is our early childhood specialist. So her email address is on here as well. Okay, here we go. We're going to dive right in. So early intervention to special education. Your service coordinator will work with you and the new IEP team to go through this transition process. Services may or may not look the same due to the differences between early intervention and preschool. So early intervention, there's much more of that home-based approach. Sometimes the providers are coming into your home and working with you. Now we're working really on those school skills. What skills does your child need to be receiving that education? So preschool special education services will be delivered in the classroom and sometimes in other community locations, such as a child care center, Head Start, or community preschool. Not all children in early intervention will be eligible for special education. The service coordinator will help you to arrange visits and to propose schools and classrooms. Least restrictive environment. This is a popular acronym you're going to want to get yourself familiar with, the LRE. Research has shown that children do better when they are educated alongside their typical peers, and they can serve as role models. This is what is meant to be inclusion. Students with disabilities should attend the school they would typically go to if they did not have disabilities. In Minnesota, because we don't have universal pre-K, it is difficult to determine the neighborhood school of the child. So it's based off of your home district and who is providing those services. The IEP must explain why and for how much time the child will be educated or participate in activities outside of the regular education classroom. So some things to think about as you're transferring over to this IEP process is about transportation. If your child has an IEP, you could be eligible for transportation and riding the bus to school. Communication needs around your child, and ways to transition your child successfully to that school setting. These are things that could be documented as an outcome in your action plan on the IFSP currently. If you plan on having your child ride the bus to school, you may want to request a time for him or her to practice getting on and off the bus and selecting a seat. Find out where the children get dropped off and show that to your child and practice walking from the bus to the door. If your child is using any sort of assistive technology for communication or meet the needs of others, make sure to find out who will take responsibility for your child's classroom on the first day to make sure all of those things that they need are in that classroom for AT. If your child has any sensory needs that have been identified, make sure someone takes responsibility to make sure those tools are also available in the classroom, such as your OT. So if your child has a wobbly seat, needs certain fidgets or weighted supports, mobile devices, again, you want to make sure that the proper things are there and waiting for them. Now we're going to talk about the IEP team. Believe it or not, it's a little bit similar to your IFSP team, but it's growing. So the mandatory members of your IEP team is the parent of a child with a disability, not less than one special education teacher, not less than one early childhood teacher, so that's usually your general education teacher, a district representative who can commit resources. That means it's someone there that understands budgets and what the school can actually propose. So you don't want someone in there that say, oh, I don't know if we can do that. I don't know if we have the funding. I don't know if we have this. You want someone there who can actually make those decisions. Person who can interpret evaluation results. That tends to be like a school psychologist or social worker. Others at the discretion of the parent or school. And that tends to be like your speech pathologist. So if your child is receiving speech services, then your speech pathologist is now on your IEP team. If your child is receiving occupational therapy at school, then the OT is now on your IEP team as well. Sometimes a child, when appropriate, is also a member of the IEP team. You as parents have the right to invite a supportive family member or friend to attend the IEP meeting and to provide support and take notes for you. But parents do not have control over who the school considers to be a member of the IEP team, which means you cannot pick your case manager. You cannot pick which OT. Parents do not get the option to pick those things. We're going to talk a little bit about IEP goals. They're similar to the IFSP goals. However, again, they're all targeted towards education. So IEP goals relate to participation and making progress with general curriculum. It's making progress toward a big goal, and then you have objectives that help us know when we're making progress towards those big goals. They must meet all of the child's needs that result from his or her disability as documented in the most recent education evaluation report. So when you qualify for special education, there's a special education evaluation completed. In that evaluation, we see what needs are identified, what needs are your child showing educationally. Those needs are then put into the IEP in some way so that the needs are being identified. A high-quality functional IEP goal describes how the child will demonstrate what he or she knows. It is written in plain language and is jargon-free. It describes the child's involvement in age-appropriate activities to address academic and functional areas, and it should be written so that it emphasizes the positive. These are all really, really important things. As PACER deals with districts all over Minnesota, these are important things to know about what an IEP goal should look like for your child. No two goals should be the same. So everyone's goals are going to be different, and IEP is individualized to your child, and again, their needs. When identifying skills that a child needs to learn, choose skills that are functional, usable, observable, and measurable. So we cannot have an IEP goal that we cannot measure. So, and also when we think about measuring, we're looking at how are we getting the data to know we're making progress towards that goal? Is it observations? Is it data report sheets? And how many opportunities do we know we're making that growth? So we also want to see skills that are not likely to develop without intervention. Developmentally appropriate that match the child's developmental level. So an IEP is valid for one whole year, 365 days from where you are, not one school year. So if you have an IEP that is written in November, you are working on those goals from November to the following October. And that's when you're going to be collecting that data. And it's important to make sure that the goals are attainable within that 1 year time frame. You do not want a goal that is way too easy. If so, okay, congrats. Now let's meet with that team to get that goal beefed up. Or too hard that it is not attainable within 1 year. Your IEP team has to be working on these goals. That's part of this is your child's plan. This is what they need to be working on. You want to address multiple areas and they're generalizable. A priority to all team members, including parents. You want goals on there that you want to be working on, not ones that you don't want to be working on. We want to enhance participation in appropriate activities. Realistic and achievable as a means to prioritizing meaningful and measurable IEP goals. So again, when you look on your IEP, it's going to have a big goal. You're going to have some objectives on there of, okay, well, how do we know we're making progress towards those goals? But then we're also going to talk about, well, how are we going to measure? How do we know we're making that progress? And that's really important.
Colleen,
Yep.
may I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
The last slide, there was nothing that was coming up. Somebody noted. I don't know if it had
Oh, no.
under the, if you go back a slide, maybe there, we're just seeing IEP goals.
But nothing pops up. And
No.
actually, nothing pops up for me either. This was
Oh, okay.
Judy's. I just have notes here.
Okay.
But I can pop in I can tweak that and then add it to the slide deck that's going to be sent out later.
All right. Thanks,
That
Colleen.
helps. Yeah, no, thank you. I'm kind of flying blind. All right, let's see. Okay, so there should be some notes flying in here. Okay, so we're going to talk about more about the goals and objectives in early childhood special education. Without goals and objectives, we would have no way of measuring a child's progress. Anyone reading the goals and objectives should know immediately what skill the child needs to learn. So this should not be in professional language that you do not understand. A parent should be able to read an IEP and understand the goals in a language that makes sense to you. So there we go. That should pop in now. So let's see here. The goal should address the child's ability to fully participate in the classroom if the child's disability impacts their ability to actively participate. So again, we're trying to figure out what does your child need to participate in that classroom? What goals should we be working on so that they can be there? A goal should address increased independence in classroom activities, transitions, self-care, if the child's disability impacts their current level of independence. Sorry, I just want to make sure there aren't any more fly-ins. I apologize. Okay. A goal should address an increase in social relationships, including interactions with peers and adults, if the child's disability impacts their ability to form these relationships. In order to make progress on a goal, the school staff should identify activities during the day in which the goal could be worked on. So sometimes a goal, we're talking about participation. It doesn't have to be just during morning meeting or circle time. It could also be at snack time. It could also be at recess. It could also be at centers, right? So you're thinking about all those areas of which that goal can be worked on. It's not just one time. In order to make progress on a goal, the school staff should identify activities during the day in which the goal could be worked on. You don't support a child's language development just so the child can talk, but also to allow the child to communicate appropriately with peers and adults. Improved language skills can also help a child to demonstrate knowledge and communicate their wants and needs. There we go. So on this slide here, we're looking a little bit about what that preschool day looks like, right? So, a sample schedule, some classroom activities, and these can be areas that your IEP goals can work on. So these are activities typically found in a preschool classroom. Use what you know about your child and the results of their most recent evaluation to consider which of these areas might be difficult for your child to do successfully. So if this is their first time separating, that could also be something that might want to be addressed here as well. But again, looking at these classroom activities, how can these goals be worked on all these times during the day? And again, this is just kind of a sample of what classroom activities can look like. But there has to be a need, right? Your evaluation needs to show, okay, we're going to be working on these skills during centers and free play and circle time and group meeting. All of that is in here as well. Here is a sample IEP goal and objective. So just kind of what it will look like on that paper. So it identifies the skills to be learned. The objective identifies how the goal will be achieved. Anyone reading the goal or objective would know what it is that John needs to learn. This timeline might be appropriate when progress reports are being done quarterly. So as part of an IEP, you do get progress reports. Usually it's twice a year. It could be 4 times a year. It all depends on what it says on your IEP, what the district agrees to. And that's, again, something to discuss with your IEP team. On the very first page of your IEP, it will state how many progress reports you should be expecting a year. And those progress reports are specific just to your IEP goals. It is separate from a general education report of how your child is doing, and it focuses just on how they're doing with these goals and the progress they're making towards them. So here's a sample goal. While participating in preschool classroom activities, Johnny will independently follow routine directions of 3 related steps in 4 of 5 opportunities across 3 consecutive days. So think about there's a lot here to unpack. Now, how do we know we're making progress towards that main goal? Is by looking at the objectives. By March 2019, while participating in a preschool classroom activity, Johnny will independently follow routine 2-step directions, needing only 2 prompts. So see how it's kind of broken down a little bit? So first, we're going to aim for this. Next, we're going to aim for, while participating in a preschool classroom activity, Johnny will follow 3-step directions, needing only 1 prompt. So you went from 2 to 1. We know we're making progress if that's what Johnny is receiving. And then by the end, we want to see 3 steps and 4 out of 5 opportunities across 3 days in a row. So you'll see how the goal is increasing. And again, it's 1 year's time. So here are some important rights that you have. The right of a parent is to participate in meetings related to the identification, evaluation, and placement of their child, and the provision of FAPE, which is a free and appropriate public education to their child. FAPE is another important acronym to get to know here in the special education world. So you must be included in planning services. Your voice matters. The rest of the IEP team must listen to consider your views and suggest strategies, but they are not obligated to include them in an IEP. So they can listen to you, they can listen to your views, they have to be respected, but they don't have to be followed. It is the responsibility of the professionals to answer any questions you may have about any part of the IEP. There is no such thing as a stupid question. Your IEP can be anywhere from 5 to 12, maybe more pages. It's a lot to unpack. Many of you probably did not get your master's in special education. So please know, Pacer, this is kind of what we do, is help parents understand the paperwork, help you understand what services your child is getting, what your rights are, and how to help when things kind of bubble up. As part of your IEP. Let's see, school districts are required to implement the IEP as soon as possible following your meeting. The IEP must be written and provided to you within 14 calendar days of the proposed start of the IEP services. You're going to read it and ask yourself, is this IEP an appropriate step toward a productive and independent life for my child? Your answer to this question will guide your decision to agree or disagree with the IEP. Part of the IEP process is something called a PWN, another really fun acronym. It's called the prior written notice, and you get that anytime there is a proposal or refusal to your child's plan, your IEP. The PWN on the very first page, or the very first paragraph, it tells you what the school district is proposing. So it could be as simple as the school district is proposing this IEP as discussed in this meeting for your students' needs. On the very last page is the consent page. What's important is if this is your first IEP, they have to have your signature on it. They have to have your consent in order for it to become effective, especially for your initial. If this is not your initial, after 15 days, it automatically goes into effect. It's called implied consent. So that means if you did not sign that PWN, if you just let it go and you've already qualified for special education, it automatically goes into effect. If you are not in agreement with what is being proposed, you have the right to disagree. You have the right to put the brakes on and say, hold on. And there are two options to object to an IEP. So you must give permission before services begin. You may say no. You may say yes. I don't want to be negative. You may say yes. Okay, so if you agree, you check yes, sign the form. If you disagree with the entire proposed IEP, check no, and sign the form and request what's called a conciliation conference. If you agree with some, but not all of the proposed IEP, write that you agree with some of the proposals and note the proposals that you are not in agreement with. The right of parents and schools to use conciliation, mediation, complaint process, or due process hearings to resolve disputes is another right that you have. So you may change your mind and you may need help in resolving problems. I would also say if you are at the point where you have any questions about your IEP and you are definitely in disagreement, please reach out to PACER and we can help you understand what's being proposed, help organize what are your thoughts and what that full process looks like. This is the very fast version of the happy ending of what that process looks like. But please know this is what advocates do. We can help you break down your concerns and the steps that you would take to move forward. And that's what that dispute resolution process looks like. Well, that is the workshop. Do you have questions? And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the right screen here. There we go. I got you back. Okay. Let's see if there are any questions in the chat. Feel free, or Q&A, feel free to pop them up in here. Please try not to keep them very specific. Please keep them very general. We are not available to help families in Ohio as much as I would love to take our show on the road. We are specific to Minnesota. Ohio and every other state has what's called a Parent Training and Information Center. So if you look on, pop that in, Parent Training and Information Center for Google, pop in Ohio, and then you will get that information and be connected to your Parent Training and Information Center in Ohio. I would also say that, they have all the resources available, similar to PACER, and can but states are very specific in regards to rules and laws around it. So PACER is Minnesota specific. There should be a recording on Zoom of this. It will be on our YouTube channel, probably be posted, I think, probably by the end of the week, maybe next week. The information you gave us is based on information nationwide, correct? For the most part, yes, it is. It is very much nationwide. When you're going, it's called Part C of IDEA, is that birth to 3 services. Switching over to Part B is switching over to the IEP is again under IDEA. What's Minnesota specific is part of that ADR process we talked about of not, when you're in disagreement with what is being proposed, that looks different among states. Some states do not offer conciliation conferences. Let's see here. I could talk a little bit more about what happens if you don't sign the IEP. Again, if it comes down to this is your initial IEP, it's your very first one, I definitely encourage you to reach out to PACER to speak with an advocate. Judy is our early childhood specialist, but many of us here are trained in early childhood or former early childhood teachers and can kind of walk you through the process and what matters with that paperwork. So kind of looking at that data to help guide you along the way in that process. Um, Again, if it's little things that you are not in agreement with, you can just put that on your form and let the team know. Say, hey, these are little things. Maybe it's a goal, maybe it's the wording, maybe it's service minutes you have questions about. Those little things you can ask for just another meeting and you get answers and clarifying your concerns. If it's the whole IEP you have questions about and you're like, I don't understand, I don't know if this is what we want, then you can ask for a conciliation conference. The other thing I like to tell parents is IEPs don't have to be set in stone. They don't have to be cemented in. This is not something that is going to last, it should last 365 days, but our kids change, needs change. So, if you're feeling like there's new big concerns bubbling up, reach out to your IEP team and say, hey, we have a concern that, these new things are happening. Is there a way that IEP can help with that? Do we need a new goal? Do we need different accommodations? Right? So your job, a strategy we often tell families is your job is to state the problem. What is the big problem that you're seeing? And then it's your whole IEP team's job to come up with the solutions. So how can everybody work together to solve that problem? All right, let's see. Can I talk about you should think of deciding if they agree or not. So FAPE is just free and appropriate public education. That isn't an acronym that you should know. Free means that your education should be free and not paying for it. Appropriate means that it needs to be an appropriate setting. Public, that's public. Free and appropriate public education, and that's the education that your child should be receiving. Let's see. Sorry, there is a lot of questions. I am going to do the best I can and try to take these one at a time. Okay. Manifestation determinations is really not something I would want to address. I would highly encourage you to talk with an advocate if you were looking at manifestation determination meetings. Those are for students with severe behavior needs or incidences that are occurring at school, and they have been suspended. And how professionals who attend IEP meetings can support families with it. Doesn't really apply to early childhood, I believe, so I would highly encourage you to reach out and speak with an advocate. So what would you suggest for a child going through preschool to kindergarten that his behavior outbursts involving other students and throwing things? Okay, preschool to kindergarten transition can be really tough. And I think that's one other thing I might not have touched on is those important transition meetings. So when you're going from an IFSP to an IEP, there should be a transition meeting from your home-based team to your school-based team of kind of filling everyone in, helping you get to know your new team and giving you that kind of support. The IFSP team will make recommendations to the IEP team of what works. This is, we've worked with this kiddo. These are things that go really well. These are things that don't go very well, so that they have those tools in their classroom setting. Same thing happens when you go from preschool to kindergarten. There should be a transition meeting with your preschool team to the incoming kindergarten team. It's not always 100% the same exact staff who you meet with. That will be guaranteed your staff in the fall. It's more of just a kindergarten teacher, a special education teacher, and an admin to gather that information so that they know what services and support your student's going to need so that they can, again, it's an information gathering meeting. When your child is struggling with behaviors, I would definitely look into your IEP team for help. Maybe there's a functional behavior assessment that could be done to help identify the behaviors. And then a behavior support plan can be created so that all the schools on the same page, when a behavior occurs, everyone has the same response. So I would encourage you to kind of look into your IEP team, see what is working, what is not. Are there strategies that maybe as a parent that they could really benefit from? And you're like, oh gosh, don't do that. That never works. We want to share that information with them. So I would definitely look into your IEP, look into your, if the proper assessment's been done. And is this a time to tweak your IEP? How does an evaluation for IEP get initiated? by a parent or by a professional referral. So for an IEP, I guess it would kind of depend on the age that you are looking to get that information on. No matter what, it's a special education evaluation. So Help Me Grow is usually the first point of contact at this for that birth to 5 range. And they kind of point you in the direction of your school district, and they're like a welcome center, and they'll get you connected with your early childhood screening. They would do a screening to determine if a special education evaluation is needed. And if so, then they go through that step of we need a special education evaluation. A special education evaluation looks at all areas of concern. So we look at communication, we look at motor skills, fine motor and gross motor. We look at that cognitive learning piece. All of those pieces are assessed and then determine whether or not a child qualifies for special education. We don't, there's no, we look and we see, we think they'll qualify. No, they won't. There's none of that. It is a very specific checklist that the team has to go by to see whether or not a student qualifies for special education. Okay, sorry, I am not used to so many questions in the chat at once, so I'm just kind of trying to fly through here. Okay. What would you suggest for a child? Oh, I did that one. And oh my gosh, did I really get everybody? Okay. Well, how else can I help? Wow, thanks. How else can I help? Are there any other questions in regards to this process? Going from an IFSP to an IEP, you're just shifting that frame of you're working with your child at home to now it's really building those school skills. What skills does your child going to need to help them be successful in education? And it's that preschool environment, so you reach out to your school district, find out what preschool programs are available, what staffing will look like. A lot of times those preschool programs transition right into kindergarten, so you just have that team continuing onward. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to touch base on. Now, if we talked about the transition meeting. I will say that Pacer does have a brand new website. It is 24 hours old and absolutely beautiful. So if you do have questions, I encourage you to look at our website. A lot can be just answered by browsing around on our early childhood page. There are a couple other questions in here I can have. Would an IEP support behavior needs if there is something better for a child entering kindergarten? Behavior is communication. I think when you're seeing behaviors consistently, they're trying to tell you something. The behavior is occurring for a reason. So there is an assessment. It's called an FBA, or a functional behavior assessment. Sometimes they're done in preschool. A lot of times they're done in that kindergarten up range, just because usually they're there a lot longer. They're there for a 6-hour day versus that 2 to 4 hour preschool day. The functional behavior assessment, it really studies the behavior. It looks at the what, when, and why of why those behaviors are occurring. And it kind of takes that step back of, okay, well, what was happening when the behavior occurred? Was it really loud in the classroom? Were all the kids going bonkers and crazy? What was that, that environment like? So it kind of reads the room of all the things that were occurring when that behavior occurred. So we take that information from the FBA. And then from there, the school district develops what's called a behavior support plan, and that gets attached to your IEP. And the behavior support plan looks at, okay, when this behavior happens, this is going to be our response. This is how often we know the behavior happens. So maybe we try to be proactive against those triggers. Or we're reteaching different skills so that behavior doesn't occur, right? So it kind of lays out steps and strategies of how to move past the behavior. What is that plan? I will say for students with very severe behaviors, such as a lipping off property, or students that might need to be held in a restrictive procedure, I think the next thing you want to make sure of that you have is what's called a crisis plan, to make sure, okay, when these things happen, we also have a firm communication plan set in place as well. If a student is going to the same school they are transferring to in the kindergarten, is the process the same? Yes, the process should be the same in regards to transition meetings, in regards to IEPs, all that. If it's the same district, that makes it nice and easy to kind of just transfer things right down the hall. Does school make evaluations during the summer? That is a really great question. Um, Most likely no. So for K, I should say for pre-K on, they do not do that because a lot of teachers are not working during the summer. You're not getting your speech pathologist, your OT, and all those big key players that you need as part of your evaluation. The earliest they would look at some evaluations would probably be September. It depends on one, the age, because I would think birth to 3, sometimes those teachers are around in different times of the month because they are year-round teachers, but again, their schedules kind of change. So that birth to 3 area, yes, with the caveat of you really want to reach out to the district to find out because again, it is summer. Their contracts do look different than regular teachers. So I would say birth to 3, reach out to your district and find out. You can also reach out to Help Me Grow, and they would kind of put you in the right direction, the right contacts. Anything of preschool on, no, those evaluations are not done during the summer. And a lot of times they don't start until that October time. In September, I like to refer to it as the honeymoon period, where everyone is getting adjusted to school. Everyone is getting back in those routines, is new schedules, new classes, new staff, new everything. So it's not okay to put your kiddos through an evaluation when so much is changing around them day by day and they're still trying to learn. So from October on is usually when you see evaluations take place. Another thing about the evaluation process, so if you're looking to get a special education evaluation, you have to sign off what's on the evaluation plan. So that PWN, that prior written notice that I mentioned earlier, that first thing that you have to sign for your IEP to become effective, you also have to sign off on that for the evaluation. They cannot do that without your consent, or parental consent, I should say. So make sure that you're communicating with the team. You want to make sure all those areas of concern are being addressed, that it's a thorough and complete evaluation. And then again, send it our way. We're more than happy to walk you through so that you understand what are the areas of concern being addressed? Why are they being addressed? What does that look like? You know, the PWN does break it down. But just so that you understand what is occurring for the next 30 school days and what does that mean when you get those results. I'm looking on here. I think I got everybody. Are there any other questions or concerns? I think I got these guys. Yeah, again, Pacer, we have early childhood advocates that are available to help. If you have any questions, we are here during the summer. I would highly encourage you to check out our snazzy new website. I know I'm having a really good time trying to figure out. It's just really nice. Everything is well organized. All of our webinars are recorded and they are placed on YouTube, our YouTube channel. So feel free to look at our webinars there. There will be a resource page that comes out with the slide deck, as well as some resources that are really good knowledge, really good things to kind of just keep in your back pocket so you have. Other than that, Jamie did mention that there is an evaluation. If you wouldn't mind just taking a few minutes to help us out with that. If we've helped you in any way or answered any question, we would appreciate your feedback. Those questionnaires we report to our grantors so that we can keep putting on these fun little webinars. And with that, I think I am all set. If no other questions are popping up here.
I don't see anything, Colleen,
Oh,
in hand, so I think we're good. Again, that survey will pop up, a link to that survey, and we'll get that email out to you. It should arrive in your inbox about noon tomorrow. And hopefully we'll also include a link to this recording. So,
thank you very much, Jamie,
yeah,
and to our interpreters as well.
yes, thank you to the interpreter as well. Yep. All right, good night or good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.